James Hetfield just gets a text at like 2 a.m. from Tobias Forge saying, "You up?"
I am all ears. The Ghost Fancast.
Hello, welcome to the I Am All Ears podcast with me, Alva. Today we're joined by Katie, Alana, and Cami. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hey.
Hello. Right, so today is going to be the first of maybe five. We've got 5 albums, but obviously we might include EPs in with each album. Basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go through album by album, sort of era-ish by era, because if we're going to be tying in EPs, then it counts as an era. Taylor Swift style. But yeah, we're going to be dissecting, reviewing, discussing each Ghost album one by one. So, obviously, where do we start? Today, we start with Opus Eponymous.
The fanciest way to say that it's a self-titled album.
The OG, the one that started it all. Quickly, before we get in, I just want to obviously disclaim that obviously all the opinions that we state on each song are our own. Don't come for us. So if we don't like a next song and you do, that's okay. That's all good. You know, there's no shade here.
Some shade, depending on the song.
Yeah.
And depending on the mood when I feel like I'm talking about the song.
Exactly. Well, so we're hoping that, like, I did research for this, guys. I have notes. So we're hoping that we can provide a little bit of info, history, whatever. Maybe some facts you didn't know. Yeah. Right.
Mm.
So, Oopie Poopie, Opus Eponymous, was released on the 18th of October, 2010. However, I've got to give a special shout out to the demo cassette that was released. Well, I don't actually know when the cassette was manufactured, but the demo was released on MySpace, I should say, rather, on the 12th of March, 2010.
Yeah.
The demo included Ritual, Elizabeth, Prime Mover, and Death Knell. You can hear them on YouTube. I actually really like them. You can kind of see where he was going with them. Anyway, it was produced by Gene Walker. I have no words. If you don't know who Gene Walker is, it's one of Tobias's many names that he used to hide under.
The man of a million names.
Yep. And if we look at the album cover, it is blue, a lot of blue, and it is Papa Emeritus sort of doing a fucking spooky rah over the Linköping Cathedral.
I'm gonna get you. Oh, I'm so spooky.
Reference to Salem's Law.
Ah, yeah, I completely forgot about.
I think you already talked about this in another episode when you were talking about like influences, but how it's pretty much all Ghost album covers are based off of something else. So for Oopie Poopie, it is it's Salem's Lot. It's really cool. It's funny. It's funny how like like when other people like do like ghost inspired like art where they'll do like a variation in like a ghost style, it's always Opus. They never do any other album cover.
I think it's because it's probably the easiest to copy because it's just like solid black
simple
shadow, you know.
Well, I saw one like the other day. I think it was like Simpsons Day or something, and or something, and it was like what's the priest name from The Simpsons?
Oh, Reverend Lovejoy.
Reverend Lovejoy.
Yeah, Reverend Lovejoy. So they did it. They did one with him, and he was like it was in the style of Opus, where he's like all blue and spooky, and it's got the Springfield church that he's like hovering over. But it's just like every time someone makes like a ghost inspired piece, like when they do like a spoof of something, it's always Opus. Always Opus.
Oh. Did you see, literally yesterday, Rob Halford posted a picture wearing a modified Opus Eponymous t-shirt with cats?
Yeah.
It's so cute. You know what I mean? Like, he's just standing with his arms by his side, with a grin on his face, in shorts, wearing a t-shirt that says cats on it. Like, Look at
First
my
day of school
outfit.
vibes.
Yeah, it's very much, and I love it so much. I love Rob Halford. He's so cute. I love him.
All right, so the album starts off with that. I'm just going to pre-warn everyone. When it comes to the Latin names, I struggle, so don't at me. Deus culpa, which I wrote down, apparently is translated to God's fault.
It's kind of God's blame.
Yeah, God's to blame.
Yeah, because meus culpa means, oh, my fault, you know?
Oh, okay.
You know, so because it's usually you hear it whenever people like apologize. You know, oh, like a meus culpa. You know, it's like, oh, it's my fault, my bad. You know, it's basically it's like it's God's bad, not mine.
I was not aware of that. So it's a reverse organ rendition of Bethlehem's. Oh, it's Swedish. Shana. I am learning Swedish, I promise. Which is the Star of Bethlehem, or Glans over Sjö och Strand, which is shines over the lake and beach. It's a traditional song that is okay. I've got a quote here from my friend Insomnia Ghoul about this, because I asked her about it and I said, is this like a song that's kind of used a lot in the nativities, like around Sweden a lot? And she said it is an absolute staple as both a Christmas song but also during the Lucia celebrations, which is on 13th of December, originally a heathen holiday meant to scare away the bad spirits in the darkness. But one of the songs they sing when the kids are a tiny bit older, like 9 and up brackets, is Glans over Sjö och Strand, and it is truly hauntingly beautiful. I could go into the history of Lucia celebrations, but just Google it. It's a little thing in Sweden. It's really cute. But it is very, like she says, it's very haunting. From what I was looking at the personnel on it, it says that I think Tobias was on the keys, so he had to kind of play this and then just like reverse it. But it's just cute that it's like a part of like Swedish childhood. We also went into this massive thing about him having the cone hat on his head, bitching that he wanted to be Santa as a kid, but we digress from that.
It's also a very heavily, obviously, like referencing backmasting, which is that thing of like if you play records backwards, you can hear them worshiping Satan. You know, that. Because like they used to say it with like AC/DC and Kiss and stuff, if you played the records backwards, and there's like so many videos which are great to watch of, you know, conservative people running these records backwards, going, "Can you hear it? Can you hear it?" Like, no, I can't. But sure, whatever you're doing, stop doing that. You're wrecking the record.
My brain just thought of that scene from Little Nicky where he plays Chicago backwards.
I wrote down, and this is the most articulate note I've ever wrote down on this song. I put, and I'm reading it exactly as I wrote it. Is it called God's fault because he's talking about the nativity kinda, and he was like, "Oh shit, made a baby, probs shouldn't have."
Oh my god.
Maybe.
I don't know what was going on with my brain there, but yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, basically, it's kind of like setting up the whole message of Ghost, which is taking everything the church does and flipping it on its head, you know? So he's taking this kind of very well-known Swedish nativity Christmas song and, you know, and flipping it upside down and being like, Satan!
Yeah.
It's like one of those puppets, you know, that you turn inside out, and there's like one turn it and there's the other side. That's basically Ghost. It's just like one side's the Pope and then you flip it around and it's like Satan. That's the quickest way to sum it up.
Literally mirroring it.
I always heard of Deus Culpa as just like it's short and sweet. It's a very short instrumental, and I feel like it really just sets like the tone for like what you're about to get into yourself into. It has like, you know, kind of like that organ sounding if you feel like you're about to enter into a church, and then like, you know, you're gonna get into something like, okay, I don't know why I'm here, but like I'm here. And then it's mysterious, it's ominous, and then, you know, it kind of has that religious like theming to it, and like, you know, it's kind of like nice and sweet, and then it leads into something that's so nice and sweet.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, it does remind me of why I don't like going to church, because it's just so fucking gloomy, and I'm just like, oh.
Right.
Mission accomplished.
I think, I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves, but honestly, the going from Deus Coupa into the next song is one of my favorite transitions ever.
Yeah.
Oh
It's
yeah,
so
the transition
very
is
underrated.
so good.
Well, are we ready to talk about Conclave Con Dio?
Yeah.
Totally one of my favorite Ghost songs.
Yeah.
It's
literally what I wrote down. It's so
one of my favorite Ghost songs. It's just like I'm always so blown away by it because it's literally out the gate, you know what I mean? First word of the thing is Lucifer, we are here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he kicked that door open and was like, this is what this music's gonna sound like. This is what we're talking about. Welcome to hell.
Welcome to hell, motherfucker!
Yeah!
So, I have a translation here, roughly. And it is... I'm not going to read the Latin, I'm just going to read the English. You can bring up the original lyrics and read along with me if you like. Again, I've put as a disclaimer that this is a very questionable translation because I just Googled it.
Yeah.
So the bit with the chorus is, we are with nails, we are with God, we are with our dark God. And I was a bit like, nails? But then when he's talking about the smear the smudge in bleeding palms, it kind of reminded me of the whole
stigmata.
crucifixion things.
Yeah.
Is that what that is? Yeah, okay.
I actually find a really interesting quote from somebody on Reddit. That basically it reads this. This is from they're called Tritanium21 on Reddit. It was also off the Ghost BC Reddit page. It said conclave is a heretical phrase when referring to the church, or at least it was. It literally means with nails, but it is translated as with spite. And sounds quite close to conclave, which means the body of cardinals that picks the Pope. And so this implies that the Pope is picked with spite to God.
Ooh.
Okay.
And I was like, who are you? First off, amazing. Thank you for that. And so yeah. So it's basically like them saying, like, the Conclave Con Dio is them basically saying this song is them picking obviously the satanic Pope, you know, and spiting God by picking him. Like, this is Papa Emeritus. He is here to spite everything God has made, you know, like spite the church, you know, and worship our dark God. And I was like, oh my God.
Okay, so speaking of lyrics, I've got something to bring up that I know pisses the hell off with you a lot.
My favorite thing.
The lyric change. Okay, I can't remember off the top of my head. Is it on the record? He says our conjuration, and then he says congregation.
Yes, he says conjuration on the record. Like, the thing that annoys me is not that he said that, you know. What annoys me is it went through people listening to it and nodding along and going, yeah. And then it went to an English producer who also nodded along and went, yeah. And then at some point later, somebody went, what's a conjuration? You know, I was always like,
it already came out, it was already produced and everything. Because it's like one thing if he said it like on the demo, because it's just the demo, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that it went through so many people to be produced into a full-fledged album, and no one once during that whole process was like, did you mean congregation?
Yeah, I just think it's so funny, and I love it so much. Like, I wouldn't never want to go back and change it because I love it so much. Like, I don't hate it for the fact that he said it.
You mean he changes it on stage?
Yeah, he changes it on stage, but that recording better stay like that forever. You know,
honestly, I didn't think anything of it. Like, it's just like our conjuration. Okay, yeah, our either our group of people that are conjuring.
Yeah.
Or are like demons who were conjured.
Yeah.
In the Infernal Psalm. Like, okay, yeah. That makes sense.
I get it.
Me. So like,
I'm down, buddy. And it's like, that's not what I meant. I'm still
down. I was like, oh, I actually meant congregation. Like, oh, well, I guess that's also cool. I thought we were summoning demons though.
Yeah, I only noticed it because he changed it live, so I was like, oh wait, he's changed it.
Yeah, but I also feel like people listen to it and were Catholic enough to know what this means. You know, like, is this a real thing or a Christian thing that I don't know what it is in the church? I'm not gonna ask him because I don't want to seem dumb. And he's just sitting there going, "This is exactly what I meant." And somebody went, "Did you mean congregation?" And he was like, "I twitch."
Getting a little bit onto the musical side of things, I've put down that, and Tobias said this himself, that actually, to quote him directly, he said, if you listen to Let There Be More Light by Pink Floyd off their album Source Full of Secrets, that's Conclavi con Dio. Yeah. And I listened to it and I was like, yeah, okay. But I just, it's like we were saying, it's such a good song, especially live. I don't want them to ever take it off the set list. Like, some of the times I saw the festival sets and it was off, I missed it. But it just proves it disproves rather the whole Ghost isn't metal, because you listen to this and you're like,
it's so metal
as fuck.
Yeah, and like the combination with the censor and stuff, you know, and I love the bit whenever he's getting people to go, no, the hey, bit live, and he's doing that with his hand to make them do it. I love watching him do that and all that. There, like, it just shows you like the kind of control he has as a lead singer over a crowd to kind of get them, because the audience will do what he's telling them to do. Like, he doesn't need to say it; he just kind of needs to do this, and people understand. Oh, this is what he wants me to do, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just visually stunning. Like the way the lights flash as well. Mm-hmm. It's like, especially now, like, obviously, yeah, like, it's so good. Even whenever Ghost had no budget, their budget was a shoestring and a hope and a prayer. Their lighting has always been A+. I remember I read a review whenever they were touring. This is obviously, it was just Festism when they were touring with it, but they still had this even in Opus. They basically kind of compared it to the person who directed Suspiria, the way he plays with light in his movies. Can't remember his name right now. Argento. He basically he'll wash scenes in just one block of color. You know, like a green or a blue or a red, you know, and the reviewer kind of compared Ghost stage setup to a Dario Argento movie, you know, and I was like, even when he had no budget, this man was out here, you know, conveying his message with a light bulb.
I'm just waiting for the day I get fucking hit in the face with that fucking incense burner, and I will thank him for it.
Yeah, I'll just tattoo the burn. Yep. On your face. This is where I got hit.
It smells so good as well.
Yeah, it's just like a. I'm trying to think of the right words of how I want to say it. It's just like an iconic moment when he comes out with a thurible, and he's just like, you know, he's just waving it around, and you know, he's just doing his thing, and it's just, and when he hypes everyone up to do the hey, he's like, Satanas, we are
so
one. And it's just like, oh, I love it. That
so actually brings up what I was going to say about that line. He's like, we are one out of three Trinity. I love that line, because it's a mock of obviously the Trinity of, you know, Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Because obviously his version would be Satan, the Antichrist, and the Beast. You know, and I love that. I love, like, he's like, I love how like, he says he's never been really religious, you know, like, he's never really had like
research.
And I love that you can see that he's done it, you know.
Yeah,
like, this is not him just kind of coming in and bullshitting, like a lot of, like, not shitting on other bands, obviously, that make this kind of music, but like a lot of them you can tell have never been religious, never had any kind of access to religious imagery, but they don't actually want to go and look, you know.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of like, it's like, Satan's great, woohoo, and you're like, anything else?
Nope.
Satan.
But hail Satan, like, that's what I feel like that's what most bands do whenever they kind of like trying to depict that imagery. With sort of like any sort of like religious imagery at all. It's usually just a very like very surface version of it, where they're just like, hail Satan, Satan is evil, fuck yeah, or whatever. Where, like, yeah, what you were saying is that, like, you can tell that, like, Tobias does like a lot of research. Like, he he goes all in for it. Like he never half asses anything.
No.
Ever.
No, he always uses his whole ass.
Every job is a whole ass job for that man.
Exactly. It's whole ass. But
whole
yeah,
ass.
he goes really heavy in on
it.
Yeah, he really goes heavy in on like Satanism and like occult and all that different things. But like he goes all in. And
but also history, like actual history lesson. Yeah.
Yeah, because he has a couple songs on this album that are very, like obviously, like obviously when we get to it, like Stand By Him and stuff, and like, obviously Elizabeth. Yeah. He's just so good. If you can tell, we're fans.
Sorry, Cammy, I cut you off there.
Oh, I didn't even notice. Okay. The one thing I want to say about Conclave con Dio is that I miss when I think they don't do it anymore because of like costume changes now, but like back in the day, when he used to like really sing the Latin part at the end, and it would like everything would just be silent. He'd just go Siamo conclavi, siamo Dio, siamo con il nostro Dio.
I love that video of him Secondo doing that.
Yes.
And he's kind of like conducting. Like nobody else is singing along with you. No one else in this crowd is singing along with you. They don't know. But good, conduct.
Yeah. No, I miss when they used to do that. Like literally when like it would just go silent and it's just Papa and just he's like, just I guess they don't do it anymore because they do like these big costume changes now. And like it's fine. But like there was I don't know, there was always something so special about that. Like it was very like I don't know. It just kind of like tied in with everything. And another thing with like ghosts, or at least when they were first coming out, is that like for a lot of people when Opus came out, like they only heard the album and they're just like, this is really cool, I like what they're singing, I like how it's kind of like a lot of people talked about how with Opus, how they thought it was really cool, how it was like kind of like a retro sound, it was very melodic, and like as the great James Hetfield used to say, it's like a breath of fresh air for metal. Like it was just something so different, like you haven't heard it in a while, and it was so cool. And then after Opus came out is when you saw the imagery behind it, and it just really tied things together. And like they really just handed up in those like first early shows where they really hyped up the church feel of it.
I do want to say, I think that the most expensive part of their stage setup is probably the thurible, because have you ever looked at how much the things cost?
Yes. Yeah. Did you ever see the video of them making it?
No.
There was what do you call the company that did the costumes? Black something. I can't remember. Majesty Black. Yes, they uploaded a video showing like a kind of quick showing of like, and it like that thimble was like hand beaten and everything, like the metal and everything of it, like to shape it and all to make it like that's literally handcrafted, and that thing costs so much money.
Oh yeah, but like even if you just go, because like for the ritual, the first stage show, like they just ran down the road to like a church supply shop and got one. Yeah. They're like $120 for the basic model.
I actually have a quote here, not about the thimble exactly, but it is about costs. It's from Lee Doran. It's from Louder Sound. It says, something strange was afoot, but Lee Doran wasn't sure what. It was early 2010, and he had recently signed an intriguing new band named Ghost to his label, Rise Above, and their frontman and mastermind, Tobias Forge, wanted money. Or a robe. At this point, I still hadn't seen what they looked like, he recalls. Tobias kept asking for money, which was increasing, for this bespoke robe he needed to have for a photo shoot. It ended up costing more than the actual photo shoot itself. And I was like, fucking hell, it better be a decent robe. And then you look at it and you're like, he's probably paying people to kind of put the sequins and stuff on. I love Primrose robe. As simple as it is, with the little sequins crucifix and stuff.
Yeah.
It's so cute, I would pay any money to see Primo with copious budget, though.
Oh, definitely.
I don't
Could
know.
you
There was
imagine?
there was also still like some charm with it, like with how like because like this was like the first time like Tobias has like really like gone all in on something like this because like all of his projects before were basically just like he would like do himself up where like you look at like Subvision and Repugnant and even like so a little bit of like Crash Diet and everything. Like he always like had like a look, like a uniform. But basically all he did was like he just put on like the same clothes and like for like Repugnant he would just like messy up his hair and like put blood on it with like the most basic like skull paint you could think of. Like not even really skull paint, it was just like kind of a very watered down corpse paint, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's just like he just did himself up with probably shit he already had in his closet. Whereas like this was like really like his first time like putting on a costume because like I don't have a source on this, but like if I remember correctly, he didn't really know what to do for like a stage performance or anything. Because first of all, he didn't. A little history for you. Tobias Forge didn't want to be like the lead singer for the band.
Reluctant
He
lead
wanted,
singer.
yeah, he started working on this, and he just wanted to be the guitar player, and he approached like a ton of people to be like the singer for Ghost. Like he wanted Ghost to be his project, but he didn't want to be the face of it. And then like no one would take him up on being the singer. So then he was like, fuck it, I guess I have to be the singer. And then he didn't like really know like what to do. And then he kind of like just came up with this, and it's beautiful. We love him.
What's actually really funny about that, he said that he, originally wanted Messiah. He used to be in Candlemas. I said he messaged him and stuff. When I was doing research for this, I found a quote from Messiah saying that he didn't use MySpace quite. He had a MySpace, but didn't really use it. And then, like maybe a year after Ghost album came out, he logged into MySpace and saw this message from Ghost being like, "Would you like to be the lead singer?" And he was like, "Oh shit." Oh well. So like he might have been able to get Messiah if Messiah had been bothered to check in his MySpace page, but he never did.
Can you imagine how things would have gone if Messiah was the lead singer and Tobias ended up becoming the guitar player only?
You see, that's why I think he sang like that, because Messiah has very much a very operatic kind of style of singing. He sings very like like that kind of style, and you kind of hear Tobias kind of copy that, and there's a video from like the Terzo era where he came on stage for, I think it was like an anniversary for Candlemas, like
the
30th
anniversary for Well of Souls, my favorite song.
Yeah, and he came out on stage and sang, I can't remember the name of the song, sick fake fan, but I can't remember the name of the song. Was it Well of Souls?
Yeah.
Oh, well, he came out and sang that, but he's mimicking Messiah, the way Messiah sings, and if you listen to that, it kind of sounds like the way Primo sounds. So I feel like he was definitely trying to kind of capture that kind of feeling that Messiah had when he was singing, so that's kind of why he was kind of doing the big operatic boomy voice, because he was trying to mimic that, which I think worked. I think he did it very well. 10 out of 10. Would listen again. Do regularly.
Speaking of mimicking, are we ready to talk about Ritual? Because okay. Because I found a quote where they were talking about I think it was in Sweden Rocks, and they were discussing Opus Eponymous track by track. And the interviewer brought up the fact that the riff sounded a little bit like the intro to Symphony for Destruction by Megadeth. However, he kind of tried to push that idea off and be like, yeah, I've got the records, but I'm not really a fan of Megadeth, which is the typical Metallica versus Megadeth fanboy thing that's going on. And he even tried to push up even King Diamond, saying, that wasn't a reference and that it was more like Dark Lady by Cher, which I listened to and I can't hear. But I love the song.
I love it.
I'd be so sad if they took this off the set list. I think they did a few times at the festival shows, if I remember correctly, and I was just like, never take this away from us again. I'm obsessed with how, and I'm kind of sad he corrected it now, but I'm obsessed with how he says chapel, because it's if you don't know,
I love it.
A lot of when Swedish people speak English, you'll notice it with not just Tobias. The sort of ch sound they struggle with, and it just becomes like a sh. Apparently, like it's quite a common thing when like in Swedish lessons where or Swedish to English lessons. Either or, if Sweden's talking about if Swedish people are talking about speaking English, that they'll be like the example they use is he was shitting on her, and they mean cheating, but it sounds like he was shitting on someone, which is on brand. But I digress. Yeah, I fucking love this. I miss it.
I love it. It's the most Beach Boys-y sounding one to me as well. It sounds like it definitely captures that kind of thing that he wanted. You know, like he said he wanted Ghost to sound like a 70s band, like a late 60s band that had done their run as a kind of, you know, Beach Boys kind of sounding, you know, band. And I feel like this song is the one that really like captures that kind of feeling, you know?
Yeah. Well, that bit at the end is so fucking groovy. Like, I kind of miss the little walk that Aoife used to do, like, at the end of it. If you go back and watch videos from, like, 2022 at the end of Ritual, the little walk, I mean, with the fucking groovy riff that's going on.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's so good, you know? And then you have, obviously, like, the inverted Lord's Prayer as well in it, which is just amazing.
I love that part, especially like live. Like they've really like they've done it up since I'm more of a budget where like nowadays like the whole lighting will change and it's all red and then he gets like super creepy like Our Father who art in hell. Like it's so good. It's like again, this is another one of the songs like when you get to that part, it's like how can you say this isn't fucking metal?
Yeah.
Right.
I remember him saying in an interview once that bit kind of whenever they were doing it or wherever they're doing it now, that like in English speaking countries, it you know it works and people understand the kind of reference. But when you get to places that don't have English as a first language, you'll start doing it and they kind of just stand looking at him going, "Yeah, I don't know what this means, but." Yeah, you know, like, you know.
A lot of people are surprised to hear that Nema meant amen backwards. Like, they didn't click, which obviously, like you say, if it's English isn't their first language or it's not used or it's, you know, I suppose you wouldn't. But, yeah, there you go. It means that.
English is my first language, and it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to put 2 and 2 together with that.
Not gonna lie, same actually.
Like, I was kind of like, oh yeah, never. And then like I don't know why I don't know why it took me so long to realize I'm like, oh my god, it's amen backwards.
Well, if you haven't seen it written down, you won't immediately think, you know what I mean? Because like the first time I heard it,
because I would watch it written down and I'd still be like, yeah, cool. Like it was embarrassing how long it fucking took me, and I'm just like, oh wow, I really am a fucking dumbass.
But it's just another kind of thing as well. Like the theming of this album is great because like from the start, it's just like everything is like just letting you know straight. Like well, obviously we're back in Day School, but it's just letting you know. And every song since has been, you know, it's an inversion of what you know of the church. You know, so like this is an inversion of like his version. This like his universe's version of their Dark Lord's prayer. You know. And it's such like obviously he said that he didn't really have a whenever they first made Ghost he didn't have a plot, you know, like or a story or whatever kind of setup. But like even even if he didn't, he still had a universe that he was building, you know, and he was kind of laying like this album's so good for like laying the groundwork of like the kind of theming and the you know, analogies that he's going to be using, and the fact that everything, like, you know, like it's the church, but like flipped it on its head. And it's really funny. What I love about Ritual is like how cheery it sounds for like talking about a church full of dead bodies.
Yeah,
right.
Like,
in this chapel of Ritual.
Like, yeah, it's like kind of cheery, and then like,
you know, like,
and then it doesn't get like really spooky until they get to the Dark Lord's Prayer, and it's just like, all right, I see you. And like this was one of their this was on like the demo, so this was like the intro into Ghost. Like this is what like people first heard like on MySpace back in the day. So he already like was painting this picture. Like even though he didn't have a story in mind, like he kind of did. He kind of did.
It's like I think the reason Ghost succeeded. One of the reasons I think Ghost succeeded more than say Subvision or Repugnant is he had such a clear vision. You know, like even from the even Stand By Him and all these early tracks, there's such a clear vision for what Ghost is. You know, because like if you look at all of Tobias's older bands, he constantly makes throwback bands. You know,
right?
Like Repugnant is a throwback band to old school death metal. Subvision is like a throwback to like 70s
New York
kind of pop punk, that style. Even his own music, when you listen to his own, that's again very Beach Boysy 70s. Like he's very all of his music's throwback, and and even with Ghost, like Ghost is like he said himself very primordial before metal started getting kind of broken down into subdivisions and like this argument about Ghost being metal or not, and it's like they are metal if you look at metal in the sense of bands like Black Sabbath, because like if Black Sabbath came out now, they wouldn't be called metal,
right? It's metal in the definition of, or like in the sense that like what metal used to be, like metal wasn't. It wasn't like it wasn't ever. It didn't start off like that. Metal was a little bit more on the melodic. Yeah, it was on the more melodic side. It was just metal was just something that was like different than what was like popular at the time, and it just talked about like these dark themings. So it's old school metal because, and that I feel like that's why it succeeded so much, because like at the time it came out, everyone understood like what metal was at the time as like just this like super heavy, like all this like kind of like the screaming vocals and everything, and all these like crazy things going on, and there wasn't like clean vocals weren't like as common anymore in the metal scene, which is why it kicked off so well, because it's like, oh, we haven't fucking heard this shit in many years.
And also as well, Ghost was his kind of like, I feel like Ghost was also his kind of response to the kind of like, I know like we always joke about the fact he doesn't like new metal, but I feel like Ghost was his kind of like his response to the rise of like new metal and hardcore bands and stuff, and him being like, I kind of want music metal to sound like this again, like can we kind of go back to sound like this a little bit, like like I know we always joke about him talking about new metal, but I can understand like from the point of view of somebody who wants to make retro metal or like retro sounding bands, like because like, he wanted to get like with Repugnant. I've talked about this obviously, on the Repugnant episode, but like he wanted to get signed to Roadrunner, and Roadrunner weren't signing bands that sounded like Repugnant at the time. They were signing bands that sounded like Trivium, which is very screamy, but like also had a lot of clean singing in it, and was kind of a bit more, in air quotes, radio friendly, if you know what I mean. Like because they were getting played on things like obviously in the UK you have like Scuzz and Kerrang, TV and things. Rip, the true heroes of our time, those channels. But like Repugnant would not have, like they weren't looking for people Repugnant, and then again Subvision, whenever he brought Subvision out, which was like mid 2000s, they were signing bands like, again, it was like Linkin Park and like Limp Bizkit and things like that there, and nobody was wanting bands that sounded like Subvision, and it's just kind of, I can understand the frustration.
You know what is ironic? You mentioned in Trivium. Trivium actually took them out on their like first UK tour.
Yeah, and they also went out with Avenged Sevenfold as well.
Yeah, and Deftones.
Yeah. So I can understand, because like from the point of view of somebody who wants to get a record deal, I would also too feel a bit begrudgingly and dislike against the genre that was kind of, in my eyes, blocking me from getting what what I thought what I wanted, like, it's like, who the fuck listens to Limp Bizkit anyway? It's like all these people would stock 99. Look at this thing. This is a mess.
Right. And obviously, like, he also like he doesn't hate, like, those like types of music as well, like, because like he like every time you see Tobias, he's always wearing like some like black metal, death metal shirt. So like, he's not like opposed to like vocals like that. It's just like,
oh yeah,
I think he just back in the good old days.
Yeah. Back in the days, I wasn't alive. Like back when my mum was young. Like type of things. Back when I was a sperm. But yeah, like I feel like Ritual is a great encapsulation of the kind of vibe that he was going with Ghost. Obviously, like that 70s, late 60s, early 70s metal that was kind of like, before genres were kind of getting thrown about names and stuff, stoner rock and all this here, it's like a primordial thing where these bands had gone through the trenches of trying to sound like the Beach Boys, and then we're like, fuck it, let's soil of Satan. And then this made Ghost, and it worked.
I think people use Ritual, like, and they compare it to like bands like Black Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult. I think like this is where like the whole like, oh, Ghost took inspo from Blue Oyster Cult. Ghost is just Blue Oyster Cult, and it's like, they're not Blue Oyster Cult.
I personally, like, this might just be because I don't listen to a lot of Blue Oyster Cult. I personally can't hear a lot of Blue Oyster Cult. I hear Merciful Fate, you know what I mean? And I hear like, again, like Beach Boys, and I hear, like I hear Black Sabbath, and I hear all these things, I don't hear Blue Oyster Cult, and this isn't like, and he's one of these guys where if he says he wasn't inspired by something, I kind of believe him, because he will just straight up say, I wanted this song to sound like a Led Zeppelin song.
Yeah.
Or I wanted this song to sound like such and such. I stole from this song, I stole from that song. So he's very open about his inspirations and where he kind of like nicks things from. So if he says it didn't inspire, I'm like, I believe him.
And didn't recently like Blue Oyster Cult themselves are just like, I don't hear it either.
Yeah, they kind of said like, they said something along the lines of they can hear it a little bit, but like not to the point where it's plagiarism. And I'm like, nobody ever suggested plagiarism, because you just don't sing about Satan first off. But like there could be like, it's just he says it's because of the layered vocals. He does a lot of vocal layering, which Blue Oyster Cult does, and I feel like that's the only thing that you can compare them to. But it's like they make spooky sounding music that has layered vocals. Doesn't automatically mean they sound like Blue Oyster Cult.
Well, yeah, Queen used to do layered vocals, just minus the spookiness.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like I think it's just people trying to reach. It's that kind of thing where you have to compare it to something, because you can't have somebody be unique. God forbid. So it's just like trying, like, early reviewers. Because I also feel like a lot of people parrot kind of a lot of these kind of things out, when they're reviewing things. Like the whole thing of Scooby-Doo chase music is like, you don't know what Scooby-Doo sounds like. Yeah. Because if you ever listen to like modern Scooby-Doo chase music, it sounds nothing like Ghost.
It's Simple Plan.
Yeah, it's Simple Plan. If you listen to like old school Ghost, like old school Scooby-Doo, it sounds like the Beach Boys. The theme song sounds very much like, that kind of like groovy surf rock,
Right.
And stuff like that there. So like when they say Scooby-Doo chase music, I think it's just slightly groovy rock that has spooky stuff in it. Again, it's like, and I feel like trying to kind of, and haters, hashtag haters, we're just trying to kind of grab things of reference to kind of say, and as time has gone on, people just parrot it back, but they don't actually understand what they're talking about. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I don't hear Blue Oyster Cult, and I don't really hear Scooby-Doo. Nothing against Scooby-Doo. I love Scooby-Doo. Like, I think it'd be really, because Kiss actually did a Scooby movie, and I would be 1,000% down to see a Ghost Scooby-Doo crossover. I think it would be hilarious.
Okay. So next up we've got Elizabeth.
Yes.
Which History Nerd Forge comes in and references Elizabeth Bathory, who was a Hungarian noblewoman and an alleged serial killer. And I didn't know much about this until I heard about this song. But as anyone with a slightly more brains, go ahead and explain it then, because I do not have. I didn't know a lot about this.
Well, she was basically a noblewoman, obviously, like I said, like a Hungarian noblewoman who was accused of luring young girls from the village below where she lived up into the castle with promises of work and, like a better life, living in this castle, and then that she would then subsequently murder and bleed dry, to bathe in their blood to stay young forever, She's kind of moved into the territory of more of a folklore at this point, rather than, like, it's kind of hard to kind of differentiate between what's true and what's fact at this point. It's true and false at this point, sorry, because so much time has passed and it was so long ago that you can't really, like, I personally always viewed it as more of, she was a wealthy woman who had land and power, and men are going to be like, we don't like that.
This is what I was going to say.
This was something.
This was a misogynistic time where people were like being accused of being witches for the slightest little thing, so there's going to be a skew of opinion there.
And she's also kind of like one of the early kind of basis for the modern vampire as well, which kind of fits with this album, because like the Salem's Lot reference on the cover, I feel like Primo Papa Emeritus is very much like the vampire from Salem's Lot as well. The kind of vibe that he gives off, it kind of reminds me of that too. The fact that he's like, it's just all things that just reminds me of him. But like Elizabeth Bathory, she kind of ends up being a staple in metal. She always has been. Like the band Bathory is literally named after her. You know what I mean? Like,
why did I not click on that?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. She's like become kind of like this symbol of, vampirism and metal and darkness and stuff like this here. She's referenced in the anime movie Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. They have Elizabeth Bathory in that as well. She's a vampire in that, and she's so cool. And she it looks amazing. But it's hard to kind of differentiate between fact and fiction with her now.
Yeah, because it was it was never like confirmed like if this stuff really happened or if these were just like nasty rumors spread by her enemies just because like she's a woman that has like like some sort of standing, and it's just like, oh fuck women, she's a witch.
Yeah, like they said she killed like 300 girls, and I'm like, how the fuck is she managing that? Like even at that time, how is she managing that number? You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, you would think that somebody would catch on before, 3, like maybe 10 or 20.
Yeah.
You would be like,
how many girls in this village? How big was this village underneath her castle? Like, how many people were in there? It's kind of funny because also there's another another kind of inner quotes fact. Is that she got arrested and she got put in house arrest, and the kind of story is that she was like locked in a tower in her own castle and that she died within 4 years of being locked in there, which kind of like the kind of helped kind of perpetuate the vampire myth around her, like, she wasn't feeding on their blood anymore and she wasn't bathing in their blood anymore, so she died because she wasn't having access to it. Like she is honestly, like, if you're going to write about any killer, she's probably in air quotes serial killer. I am an Elizabeth Bathory apologist. It's like I don't believe you. I think she was innocent. But if you're gonna write about any serial killer, like she's a great one to write about because again, it happened so long ago. You're not going to offend anybody because nobody's alive. That was probably
right.
There's probably are people who may be related to somebody that might happen, but you'll never know.
I think it's just a cool story, like to base things on. Like it's an interesting story to kind of like write a song about, and like basically like I always thought of Elizabeth as like it was like Primo's love letter to like the great like this great witch and like vampires woman like. Because
he basically is saying that, like she's one of, like he does say, like she's one of us. Like
she's one of us.
She's one of us. She's on our team. and it's like I always had because I always had this image of Primo as kind of like a vampire-esque type character, you know. Because like I know we'll talk about it probably when we get to like the covers and stuff, but Here Comes the Sun. I know it's supposed to be about like I know we're gonna get there, but I know it's supposed to be about one thing. But I always in my head when I hear I was imagining Here Comes the Sun like a story about a very tired vampire who's waiting for the sun to come up so he can die. You know, that's the kind of vibe I always got off that.
Kind of starting off the whole thing of what we see in later albums, where he also focuses on history, not just Satan and the church. Like he actually focuses on like medieval history or like industrial history or Alexandria the Great, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I felt like this song, if anything, like because like a lot of the songs that were on Opus are obviously like just him just doing like really heavy research on like the church and like Satanism and the occult and everything. Where I feel like Elizabeth was just this moment like, let me just be like a nerd for a second.
Let me just write about this cool girl of a minute. Let me just write about this cool vampire lady for a minute. Let me just actually as well. Elizabeth is a good one to talk about. You know what you were saying about them not being able to hit higher notes. That he said in that Sweden Rocks interview that's actually why they took it off the set list because he was finding it hard to hit the higher notes as time was kind of going on. You know. So like I would love to hear it back on the set list. I have as I've said like in the collection episode, like I have such a like of this weird love of Elizabeth as a song, and just like the little vinyl and all they released. I love that picture of the woman standing in the blood with holding the girl's head, with their throat cut and stuff. It's like very simple, but it's incredibly gory, like in a very simple, kind of way, and I love that drawing. So
I watched when I was like prepping for this episode, I was watching this video of like this girl just kind of like going through all the songs, and like she got to like Elizabeth, and she she was like really annoyed by how like Tobias says Elizabeth. He's like where he says Elizabeth, like she was like really annoyed by that, and she was like talking about how like he just can't hit those notes. He's like stuck in his like head voice and everything. He's like really screaming, and I'm just like, oh,
leave him alone. Leave him alone. This man has just spent probably the last 20 minutes running around in a circle recording instruments for this album. Leave him alone. He's trying his best. God damn it.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say. I swear I read something about why he pronounced it the way it is. Is it to do with it's actually how it's pronounced in Hungary or like in Europe rather than?
Yeah, it's kind of
the man who does his fucking research.
Yeah, I think it's and I think in Hungarian it's because you can kind of hear it if you. I think it's also kind of like a reference to Bram Stoker's Dracula because her name is Elizabeth.
Oh yeah.
Like Dracula's bride in Bram Stoker's Dracula is Elizabeth. Elizabetta. Like that's how he says it in that. So I feel like it's kind of like a reference to kind of how he pronounced like Gary Oldman pronounced it because the man loves that movie too. And when I found that out, I was like, the man has taste.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on to the one that started it all. Stand by Him. Originally called Satan's Nut. The OG, the one that started it all, which means Satan's Nut. I know you find this funny because it sounds like Satan's nutting.
Yeah, but he said it as he kind of said that's where it came from, because obviously, because originally it wasn't like because obviously in the recorded version, it's talking about the concept of witches getting their power from Satan and stuff like that there. But in the original version he wrote, it was just about Satan. You know, so like because it kind of came out like because he says it's like Satan's nut to nut, so basically it sounds like he's saying Satan's nuts or something. Like he's a perpetual 12-year-old, like as we've said as well. But I love it. I love that. It makes me laugh. 10 out of 10.
This is the one where he mentioned like they wanted to sound like a devil worshipping Kansas. I was like, mission accomplished. That's
So my favorite thing about this song is that he says the witch hammer struck her down, and the witch hammer is actually a book.
Yep.
The Malleus Maleficarum, or the Hammer of Witches, the Witch Hammer, all about like how, like, what witches are like, what they do, how to recognize one.
It's another prime example of a man blaming women for his own problems.
Right.
You know, because the guy who wrote it basically blamed all of his own like lust and, you know, like his own feelings, you know, like his own sexual urges on evil women. It's all women's fault. They're all witches.
Yeah, and
hit them with a book.
in this book, he talks about how like women like to take men's penises. They like to take their cocks and like keep them as pets.
Yep.
And like,
so real of them.
You know, yeah, that's definitely something that women and witches especially love to do. We just, you know, love to keep cocks as pets.
There's also a really funny bit in it where, because obviously like science wasn't like fun for the church, so basically the way they viewed they there was this whole thing, because I remember watching a great video about it, and this woman had done a dissertation about the lack of like demon babies, you know, like during the witch trials. And basically the way they viewed it was like a woman's nature was hot and, you know, hot and wet and stuff, whereas man's was cold and, you know, like, no, it was like basically women's wombs were hot, you know, like, and stuff like this here, and like Satan's penis was cold and fetid, is that how it was described. So you can't take cold demon penis, demon semen and a hot lady womb and make a baby out of that, you know?
Oh yeah, because they're opposites, obviously.
So they're opposites. So that's, you can't make a baby out of that. So that's what the creation of succubuses were, you know? So like the way she described it was through air and vapor. A demon would turn into a succubus, take a man's sperm as a succubus, turn into a male succubus, and then implant it in a woman. You know? And you're like, this is insane. Like, there's a whole religion about this. You know? Like, the amount of people that got persecuted and killed because of this lack of understanding of women's anatomy and just not liking women is insane.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like the like just like lying about things to get out of their own trouble. Like,
yeah.
Oh no, no, I didn't sleep with her. I didn't fuck her. A succubus, an incubus stole my sperms.
Yeah.
That's not my baby. I didn't fuck her. That's incubus sperms.
There is actually I think there's only one report of one man dying during the witch trials. And he was pressed to death.
Yeah.
Like, they put more weight on him and stuff, you know? And it just shows you just how, you know, like, good old-fashioned misogyny was just the basis for the witch trials, you know? And that kind of makes Stand By Him, like, this kind of weird, almost feminist-style song, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there's this kind of weird, like, you know, if you kind of squint and look at it and go, yeah, it's like kind of feminist, you know? You know, it's like, you know, pro-witches. Tobias Forge is taking a very pro-witch stance on...
love to see it.
Yeah, he's like, you know, witches for president or something, you know. And it's a great song because, again, it's showing off him being a nerd, you know, his history, kind of his love of history and stuff, you know.
It makes me laugh when he was like, I wrote this as a joke.
Yeah, like, it starts as a joke and then he's like, well, now I have to make it serious.
Yeah, like, it's actually a very good song. Like, I can't think of anything, like, even remotely negative to say about it. Like, yes, it is funny. Like, it does have that kind of tongue-in-cheek, like, witchcraft comes from carnal lust, which in women is insatiable. Like, yeah, ladies are horny. Woo, we love the witchcraft and sex. But like, it is also, like you said, it is like it is a feminist song. Like, she's gonna come back. She's gonna get your ass. Like, fuck you, buddy.
It's insane to think about that. Like, and like, because like they had those things. Those, like, you know, where they'd execute women by like tying a rope around their neck with a boulder attached. And be like, if you sink, that means you're a good Christian woman and you've died a Christian death. But if you float, that means you're a witch, so it means we're going to kill you another way. And I was joking. I was talking about this the other day, and I said like, if that was me and I was being a witch and I was like standing on a bridge with a rope around my neck, I would have been like, so I'm fucked. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. So here I am. The priest likes to touch kids. She's had sex with that man. He's a bit gay.
If I'm going down, y'all all going down. Fuck you.
That's not his kid, and he'll sin. All right, push it in. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going down quietly at that point.
Right? If you're gonna die no matter what, you might as well die with style.
Yeah. And then in a way as well, like they talk about witch burnings and stuff. That happened in Europe. In America, it was the executions by hanging and stuff.
Yeah.
As well, like, which is insane. Like, it's absolutely insane. Like, every time I think about the witch trials, I'm just sitting like the amount of poor women, because like there's also as well that it was like people like women shouting trying to accuse women that they didn't like who maybe their husbands maybe had a soft thing for. Men accusing women who had land, accusing women who worked in like medicine at the time, nursemaids and things. Obviously, then there was the whole thing about like foreign women, especially as well. I always have a soft spot for Stan by him, just because like I have such a fascination with the witch trials from a feminist point of view. And just, and Stand By Him is so great. Like you said, like it's him saying, yeah, she's going to die, but she's going to come back and she's fucked.
So next up we got Satan Prayer.
It's a parody of the Nisi Creed,
Yeah.
It's basically literally, if you look at the words of the lyrics, it basically just put God in all, like kind of put the God version of it, and there you go, you have the Nisi Creed, know? When I was making notes, I was like, am I going to write this all down? No.
Yeah, no, I was kind of reading it, and I was just like, this is too religious for me right now. So hence why I probably not really ever... I had to Google what even it was. And then I found a little quote where it was like, where the interviewer asked, so why Satan prayer and not satanic prayer or Satan's prayer? And then, he says, it's because the lyrics were modelled after Jesus' prayer. It's an inversion of that text and something I would do. Something I would have done in 7th grade just to be edgy. The lyrics here are so incredibly pubertal, which works in this case, but I cannot say I agree with all the stuff I wrote. We live in an aware king.
Yeah.
And then he also brings up one of his old teachers, which I found quite interesting. Where he's like, she talked shit about me among other teachers and cooked things up. I noticed that it became a thing to be against me. That doesn't mean that I was a kind student in any way. I was not. But much later, my children went to the same school and I met my old music teacher there. And he said, yeah, it was really like as you remembered it. Even worse, I must say. She had an anti-campaign against you, which she would go around and tell other teachers, he did this, he did that. An adult woman in her 50s who should know better than how to handle a 14-year-old in her class. Which, like, how he said about, people like her pushed him into Satanism.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
I like that I do like how he's like, like, she should have been able to handle a 14-year-old. And you're just like, it's like, yeah, we love a self-aware king. And it's like, listen, it was you at 14 who said by 12 you were already into Satanism. So I can't imagine that you were very open to this woman's Christianity.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he was very into death metal, black metal, like probably a lot more than he is, like, like he was probably into like a lot more of the edgier kind of stuff, So he was probably a little pissed. I'm not saying, I'm not approving of this 50-year-old woman picking on a child. She's an adult. She should know how to handle an annoying 14-year-old. Like, just whatever. He's going through that phase. He never left it, madam. But
yeah, going back to what he said about, he wrote this as like a sort of like homage to his like edgy 7th grade self sort of thing. I thought that was quite funny.
And it works. It works again. It's like laying the ground. Like again, like this whole album is just kind of laying the groundwork for the inversion that Ghost is going to be doing with the church. So it's him just kind of taking all the stuff, like he's basically just kind of gone through with like a beater net, like to like take all the stuff that he can from the church and then invert it and then kind of like, set again as the groundwork for the kind of way Ghost is going to sound. Like he even said himself, like when he was writing this album, he whatever, because you can hear it as time goes on, like he realized he could look outside of himself to write, So this album is very much him trying to like, it's very simple compared to like a lot, because one of the complaints people have is that the Satanism isn't as obvious, in like later albums, and like it is if you actually research Satanism, because like I said earlier, like a lot of other bands when they do Satanism stuff, it's very much like just like hail Satan, woohoo, which this album kind of has that kind of feeling. Obviously, it has the kind of deeper church stuff, but it also has that kind of very surface level, hail Satan, type feeling. But if you like look at like again, like I know went ahead in time, but Call Me Little Sunshine is the perfect example of subtle Satanism, that Ghost kind of started to do, like the term like Call Me Little Sunshine and all comes from like one of the satanic kind of texts and stuff. Mephistopheles and things like that. That's another name for Satan and all this here. So like Satanism has never left Ghost. It's just got a lot smarter. But this first album is obviously very, again, primordial, very base level. It's
on the nose.
Yeah, very on the nose. Like Satan, woohoo!
Yeah.
Like Satan.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how they worked. Like all the early albums, like so, like Opus and even Infest, they all just kind of like they were very obvious about like Satan, but then they had their own little take on it. And then as you said, like as we kind of progressed and like we got further down the line, as newer stuff came out, it's the same stuff. It never changes. It's just you're just expressing it in a different way.
Right.
Which is I find one of the interesting things about Ghost is that like it's he's able to take like a topic and he's able to like try different styles with it. He's very flexible with it. Like it's an easy topic to like sing about in like so many different ways, like whether it's with how you're voicing the story or the narrative and how you're actually like visualizing it as well. Like it's always the same thing, it's just in different fonts.
Can we discuss the synths in this track? Like the bro was like, yeah, because I think a lot of metal is just like, at least the type of metal at the time was like, we're not going to use like these like old school synth sounds, and bro was just like, yeah, we're going to make it sound like it's from the fucking 60s.
Yeah, he always kind of had, even in like Infestism kind of even more so as but he said he always wanted Ghost to sound like a band that you found too late, like they had already like wrapped up and everything, and you like your friend showed you the record. Oh, that's this really cool old band, and then you like obviously they hit like as that kind of really iconic the propaganda thing, where you drop the needle because he has like the hiss sound and it goes Belial.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I feel like the first two albums especially really capture that feeling of an old band, that may not exist anymore, that had the height, of their probably success in the 70s, so like obviously all the synths and the keyboards and, the kind of grooviness of the songs and, like he really like he might think it's very simple and he might not agree, like he might like be very obviously you're more critical of your own work than anyone else is, like you can see all the mistakes that you think are there, like he may be very critical of Opus and stuff and be like, no, I wouldn't really do like that now. I was like, yes, but it's good that you don't do it now because it sounds perfect the way it is.
Yeah.
Like it fully captures the idea, that kind of the base idea of Ghost that you had going in, and I like it really does. Like it's like there's a reason it's such an iconic album. It's a reason that it captured people so quickly. is a reason why so many of the kind of icons of metal immediately were like, this band's great, because it reminded them of when they were teenagers listening to this kind of metal. I mean, we could bring up James Hetfield again. Like James Hetfield said, it reminded him of bands he used to listen to in the 70s. And he might not do it now. Like if he had a chance to do Opus again, he probably would not make it the way it sounds now. But I'm kind of glad he can't do it again.
Yeah.
Because it sounds exactly the way it needed to sound to capture the kind of feeling I feel like he was trying to go for. And it's perfect. Like it's absolutely perfect. It's yes, it's simple. Yes, it's like he said, it's prepubescent. Yes, it's got very simple guitars and drums and the synths and stuff. But that's what it needed. It's exactly what it needed. And I feel like anything more on top of that would have made it sound too much.
Well, speaking of, we're getting on to the part of the album which I think, if I remember correctly, the next two songs were either titles or riffs were potentially used in Repugnant. So the first one, obviously, we got to talk about is Death Knell. I swear I've seen this name referenced, like this title referenced, in an old Repugnant interview. So it even goes back, like, way back then. But a death knell is, if you don't know, it's the bell that is rung when someone is about to pass. They ring it just before someone dies, as they're dying, around death, and then the final one, once the pass has happened. What I find interesting is in the actual song, if you count, it rings 12 times, which sort of, if you count that, you divide that by 3, that's 4 lots of deaths. And how many papas have died so far? 4 of them.
Boom. Boom. That means Copia lives.
Exactly.
No.
And then I like how in each of the choruses he changes. So the first one is 666, then it goes to 666, which can either mean this is so both clever and dumb, because sex, like sex in Swedish, is 6, but it also means sex. So I put in brackets here, Swedish or horny? Question mark.
I think it's I think it's both, because like the song itself is about having sex with Satan. So
right.
It's horny and Swedish, which is a perfect
ghost
blurb note of Ghost and Tobias Forge. Horny and Swedish. There you go. But I like Satan's Prayer. Probably Death Knell's probably not one of my I don't have a not favorite Ghost song, if that makes sense. Like I don't have a song of Ghost where I'm like, that sucks. But like if I'm listening to them on shuffle, I will have a more tendency to skip Death Knell to kind of find a different song. I'm not saying it's a bad song. It's just like if I'm skipping through stuff. It's not one of the ones I'm like, that Death Knell, woohoo, but Death Knell, it's good, better than some people's worst, like, best tracks, but like he's done better, and even on this album, there's better,
I agree.
Can we talk though about how cool the thunderstorm at the beginning sounds?
That always, whenever I have my songs on shuffle, I'm like, is this Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath, or is this Death Knell? Because it's, I bet you 100% that's why he did it. It's a note to Black Sabbath's self-titled track.
It's that thing when you hear the beginning, that dun 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 dun. Is it Queen? Or is it Vanilla Ice? Fingers crossed for Queen. It's a good song still, and it's one of those, it's the kind of the idea of a death knell, it used to be more popular, obviously, like in the Middle Ages, that idea of ringing bells for someone's death. We've only, as a society, we've agreed that one bell's enough now.
Yeah.
We all looked at each other and went, maybe one bell's enough to say they're dead. Bring out your dead. I feel happy. No, that's a different thing completely. But yeah. It's an okay song. It's he's done better. It's a very simple song. Very, probably, I feel like one of the most melodic on the album.
Mm.
You know, it's definitely one of the most, slow kind of songs on the album, and I feel like because it's in between, like, Stand By Him, Say It in Prayer, and also Prime Mover, it kind of gets swallowed up by those other songs, because you're like, God, it's like, it's buffered by these two other amazing tracks.
Yeah. I kind of get that. I would definitely say it's on the weaker side of their songs. However, I don't know why. I just really like how he's like, oh, the death knell, death knell. He sounds so goofy singing it, but like I love it. I love how he sings it, and I love how he adds the basically like the bells and everything, and like the kind of like the thunderstorm. Like it's just I like it. Like again, it's one of their weaker songs, but I also kind of like the theming of it. How it's like it explores like mortality and the afterlife and like death's inevitability and the darkness and everything. It's nice, but it is on the weaker side of things. Like I feel like he could have taken that concept and maybe have made a better song if he were to like explore doing something like that like now. Like if he wanted to revisit that, I feel like I would have been fine, but it's definitely not like it's not a favorite among many people.
It's not gonna win a Grammy.
No.
On that note then, shall we move on to Prime Mover? Because speaking of not being a fan of a song, I wasn't actually a fan of this song until I saw it live in 2022 when they randomly brought it back on the American tour.
I love Prime Mover.
I love Prime Mover.
I know a lot of people have issues with this song due to the thematics, but again, if we go to we're going to touch on the discussion between sort of fiction and storytelling and sort of, songs, but, it's that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah. It's also kind of like his anti-Virgin Mary.
Right?
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's his
exactly
again. Yeah, it's his version, like an inversion of the a Christian story, whereas obviously Virgin Mary is like this, pristine, untouched, child, woman, teenager, whatever. Questions around Virgin Mary, the questionable, age of around Virgin Mary, on whatever. But like, obviously, like in Catholicism and stuff, she's viewed this, untouched mother of God in a sense. Whereas in the Prime Mover, then it's like this woman who's been violated. Obviously trigger warning for like the content of what Prime Mover is about. But like, it's this woman who promised herself to God, who then wasn't protected by the institution that she's in, and was then violated by that institution, by a high member of that institution, and then is now creating, the Antichrist, I know that in fiction, like in fan fiction, Prime Mover has changed its connotation of what a Prime Mover is. Like I know people don't like talking about fan fiction or whatever, but like I think it's kind of interesting that fans have kind of taken the term Prime Mover and turned it from like a negative kind of thing that the song has to like, like a positive. You're Papa's Prime Mover. Like
yay!
I'm gonna bring around the Antichrist. Woohoo! And then also as well, like with fans now, like they kind of like retroactively have kind of added this thing that maybe the song's about copia.
With Sister Imperator, that's what I wrote down, potentially.
Yeah. So like you have this kind of retroactive kind of fixing of not fixing, nothing wrong with the song, but like, retroactive kind of additions, so to speak, to the songs, I think it's great. I think it's there's this whole kind of thing within the church of especially in Ireland, there was this whole thing about Magdalene. They were called Magdalene refugees or something like that, where basically these unmarried women would go and have babies, and then they were like they kind of promised that the kids would be looked after or adopted, and then a lot of them were just dumped You know, and like this, they found hundreds of bodies of babies and stuff under cisterns, tanks and stuff in these old schools and stuff in Ireland, and it is that kind of thing of it's again that kind of it's slightly like it's kind of weird saying this, and you know, don't judge me, but there's that kind of feminist thing to it of talking about the brutalization of women, especially within the church, and like a lot of these people, you know, like will like especially like priests and stuff, like the ongoing, like obviously like the kind of forever joke is that priests are pedophiles, you know, and so it's like that's kind of it's his song then about that, you know, the kind of, you know, these people are meant to be, you know, people that are directing your soul to heaven, but these people are probably some of the most corrupt that there is, you know?
Yeah, for real.
You know what I mean? And I just think it's like, you know, I love Prime Mover. Again, like talking about the sound of it, it's very groovy, a groovy sound to it. Talking about something quite dark, you know?
Yeah, that riff,
yeah,
it's very catchy.
Yeah, you can also see as well that Tobias, like, he talks about playing guitar, but you can definitely see his bass player vibes.
Right?
You know, he's very, very favorable on, like, the bass riffs of Ghost are phenomenal. There's so many amazing bass riffs. Like, obviously, what one is it? The Conclave Con Dio opens with that, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously Prime Mover has that bass riff to it. You know, like, you can definitely hear his, like, enjoyment of playing a bass in all of Ghost's music, you know. But yeah, like Prime Mover is such a dark song, you know, with a groovy beat to it. Very Ghost.
It also fucks live.
Yeah, it's great live. And I love that thing he does live now, where he like to hold when he's holding the note at the end, and he kind of like runs his hand up the microphone and starts like finger fucking the microphone stand, and then like looks down at the audience, and then like looks at the microphone, and then it's like. It's like, yeah, we're all here.
I also love the bit he does sometimes where he'll do like when he talks about like maternal slave, he'll put his like hands together like they're like he's bound.
Yeah.
And he's like, ah. It's good. Yeah, it's kind of, I like what you were kind of talking about earlier, where you kind of like how fans like put like a different spin on it now. Like, I made like a couple of Valentines over the past couple of years, and like I always because I tried to make some like for each pop-up, and for Primo I always did the "Will you be the prime to my mover?"
Also, another thing about the song that I love is the line, "A varicose phallus obsessed and poised her." Basically just saying she got fucked by a big dick.
Cast a veil of dust upon the cloister, and he came.
Yeah, like literally, I love that he always has this way of making the silliest lines sound more deep because of how he's worded them. You know what I mean? Because like if you don't know what any of those words mean, like, wow, what's that mean? And you just kind of like, it means the big dick fucked her. Oh, okay. Yeah. And again, that's not taking anything. I think great. Like, I genuinely think it's amazing that he has this ability. Again, like, it's the fact that he's English isn't his first language as well, and he's just pulling all these words out. You know, what? Because like sometimes you have to look up. You know, like what the fuck does that even mean? And I speak English. You know, and I'm like, what's that mean? And you look it up. Oh, okay, I don't know. Thank you for adding that to my vocabulary.
Tobias never fails in me as an English speaker constantly looking up what different English words mean.
So true.
Like he makes you feel like an idiot just being like, what the fuck is he saying? But apparently even how he speaks Swedish like doesn't make sense either.
No. Well, speaking of being a wordy cunt, let's move on to the final song, which doesn't have any words in it. I pulled up this quote because it really made me laugh. It says, we're talking about the song Genesis, obviously, which is a biblical reference again.
Yep.
Because why not? It says, even though it's a repetitive pattern, more and more things happen until the repetitive pattern part ends. Then comes a postnatal segment with acoustic guitars that are quite calm, which can be likened to a birth or a post-orgasm feeling. That was the point. Bro made sex in song form. What the fuck?
It's great. It works so well because Genesis obviously is the first book of the Bible. You know.
Yeah.
He's just wrote a song about, you know, the conception of the Antichrist. This song is supposed to be like the birth of the Antichrist. Again, it's laying that groundwork. This is what the rest of Ghost is going to sound like. You know, this is the beginning of whatever this is. Like, obviously at the time, he probably didn't know what he was coming with it, really. You know, so it's just like, this is a start, I guess. I always love it as well because it sounds like to me, like, I love it because it always sounds like to me that because obviously he had that riff, you know, that kind of repetitive beginning to it. And then it sounds like he just kind of kept adding to it. Like, it sounds like he had that riff and he's kind of playing it, you know, and then he's just, like, adding stuff to it. It's like, what does this sound like with it? What does this sound like with it? What does this sound? Oh, this sounds good with it. You know, like, you can kind of almost hear him building the song.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it's a point. Maybe it's not even what it's meant to sound like, but to me it sounds like you can hear him building the song up until it gets to the end. You know, it's great. He makes great instrumental tracks. I would love to hear him do a soundtrack.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
That would be
you
really.
know? It would be great. Like, I think he would make a really good score for a movie.
Funny, because I was just thinking that to myself the other day. Like, he makes wonderful, beautiful, expressive instrumentals. Like, I love Genesis. Like, people always are like, hey, what are, oh, which instrumental is your favorite? And I'm almost always like Genesis.
I would just like to point out, do you know when they played this live, what always used to make me laugh was how Primo used to go and stand on the side of the stage like he was waiting for someone to help him cross the road.
Yeah, with his hands crossed across his chest.
It's like, all right, Grandpa, you're right.
Yeah, I think I wrote down, like, when I was, like, talking about Genesis, it suggests a beginning or a creation story. It's a fitting closer to the album with lyrics that hint at the birth of a new era or the dawn of darkness. It's an epic and grandiose track and leaves a lasting impression.
To check you out, you can write shit.
Yeah. Do you remember what was playing when they went from Primo to Secondo?
Wasn't it Genesis?
I know they played Genesis when they switched from Secondo to Terzo, but I couldn't remember if they did it. Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm sure they did it for both.
I was gonna say, probably because there isn't any songs on Infestism that kind of worked like that.
Yeah.
You know?
But I remember specifically the video where, it was Secondo and he was in the Mr. Worldwide outfit and he's like waving goodbye and everything. And then, as like the song ends, like, like that's when he kind of like he shakes hands with Terzo and they're like, all right, new start.
I was surprised, Genesis kind of became like a weird closer mid-time song that they would use. Like, he had no idea where to put the song, but obviously they didn't have very many songs. He had to play it, and he was just like, I don't know where to put it. But it's a kind of like the beginning of him writing specific instrumental tracks with the stage in mind.
Yeah.
So he can go off stage and get dressed and changed, or when things like that there. And I like that you can see that kind of. You can kind of see his brain working, as the album goes on. He goes, I need this song so I can go get changed here, and I need this song so I can go get changed here, and I can use this song to go get changed. I'd love to hear Genesis live again now with the kind of setup they have. I feel like it would sound so much cooler.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, it already sounds so cool. Just like, it just gets to this point where like you're like soaring. As you said, it was written like to be like sex, but it is like that. Like, it's like building into a climax, and then it's very suddenly after that climax, it's very suddenly over.
Yeah.
And disappointing. I'm joking.
You're left at a post-coital disappointment that the album is over.
Yeah.
You got fucked by Primo, and now he's... Oh.
I feel like for me, like, while I would love to hear Genesis again because it's such a, I personally, it's just such a pretty song to hear live. Like from the couple like videos I've seen of it performed live, like it's just a pretty song. But I feel like I'd have a heart attack because I'm just like, I know what this song means.
Oh, true. Yeah,
we're getting something now. Yeah, because like I said, like it basically the way that Genesis is that like it's the birth of something new. Because like Genesis is how like the like we've said it before. I'm just a broken record at this point. Where it's just like it's the beginning of the Bible. It's how the Bible starts out. So this is the beginning of a new story. And so I feel like if I ever hear those first few notes of Genesis live, I will go into cardiac arrest.
Yeah. Like, oh no. Just looking up a copy, I'm like, no! Grabbing onto his ankle. You're not going anywhere!
If we all hold on, they can't take him!
They can't get through all of us!
Just imagine it. You know the way they pulled Terso off stage? Could you imagine all of us like, no!
Like, oh
I
no,
go
you
into the
don't!
security guard.
Get over here!
Just like a pile of women on top of the security guard. And I'm just standing there like, what's happening? It's just like a dog pile, you know, of like people on top of the security guard. No! Get off of him! Oh my god.
You run! Go!
And he's just like, huh? Little T-Rex arms. Oh my god.
Help is on the way, dear! Help is on the way!
Help is on the way!
That's exactly it. We exactly do that. Oh my
We're just
god.
all in unison. Help is on the way, dear! Help is on the way!
More spry than we've ever been in our entire lives.
Right, I will jump that fucking barricade. I'm like,
Yep. Olympic level clearing of that stage, like pulling yourself up onto like a 7-foot tall stage, you know.
What's that phenomenon when like with like when mothers are
the
when they
adrenaline
their children
rush
in danger and all of a sudden they get like superhuman strength and abilities.
Yeah.
That like
protecting Sophia.
Great.
Lifting cars and shit over our heads.
Picking up like the security down at the barrier over your head, like
the 6'4" like beefy security guard. I'm just like gonna like drop kick him like. Thank you for joining us our unhinged break.
Oh, so I suppose technically this is a bonus track, but we got to include it. So we've got the cover of "Here Comes the Sun," which is obviously by the Beatles originally, and this is a little quote from Bestie here. He says, "There's a subtle difference in pronunciation. That was the joke. At first, I also thought we would have a gimmick song." Huh? What the fuck is he saying? At first, I also thought we would have a gimmick during that song. I would come out with a pram, pick up a baby, and stand and sing while I held the baby. It never happened, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. The problem is, as soon as that you do that, people think you nicked the idea from somewhere. But that was the thought that was going on in my head when I recorded the song. This is going to be great, because first there's this terrible baby scream in the beginning of the song, and then you come out with a pram, pick up the baby, and it starts again glowing. It would be like the cover of Black Sabbath's Born Again. So Brian is literally going to take a screaming child onto the stage to sing this song.
I don't think it would take a real baby. I think it would probably take a baby.
Would you put it past him?
No, but like I think it's the idea of traveling with a baby would probably come off.
Safety laws.
Yeah. He would do the thing they used to do for Body and Blood and like you know, get a baby every night from the audience because people bring their kids. Like he honestly got like instead of screaming kids, he could have got a kid from the audience because a lot of people bring their children to ghost shows. Just take a kid up and serenade this kid. You know what I mean? Like,
what if he brought like his own kid and is like, right, you're coming on tour?
I was just thinking that he brings on like Morris and Minnow on stage, and it's like, hey!
Pretend to cry.
Bring your kids to work day. If you cry, I'll buy you that toy.
Like,
if you cry, I'll buy you. If you cry, I'll let you listen to hip. I know he always said that guy's obviously supposed to be like, "Here comes the sun," and as an SON. Like about another again as an Antichrist type song. But I always, so when I listen to it, like I said earlier, I always hear this because it's such in a minor tone. You know, like it's kind of obviously it's a very sad sounding song. I always in my head I always picture like a vampire that's sitting for the sun to come up. You know, because they're tired. You know.
Yeah.
And they're waiting for the end to come, and that's what I always picture in my head when I listen to it. I don't care how many times he says about the Antichrist. Like, I don't care. I like my version better. Arms across my chest. You're wrong. It's about a sad vampire. But I always like the idea of it being about a vampire. That's, you know, because again, it sounds very sad. You know, as I'm just waiting for the end. That's the way I picture it. Like, I know it's wrong, but I don't care. Well, I wanted to talk about whenever you know, obviously, like I said earlier on, whenever the album came out, they received a lot of love from, like, you know, a lot of older artists, you know, and the artists that were kind of, you know, icons, you know, like obviously you have like Rob Halford and stuff like that. There, James Hetfield again, famously, but like. We always talk about James Hetfield being a fan of Ghost, but we don't actually kind of understand how soon he kind of had that shirt on, because like the album came out, when was it? October 2010, and that show was July 2011 in Gothenburg. Like it's not even a year, you know, since the album came out.
And you've already got James Hetfield on your side.
Yeah, so like immediately you'd be like, I'm doing something right here.
Not only on your side, like just saying like, oh, like maybe mentioning that it's a good album. Like you're literally wearing merch for an interview.
Yeah.
Like, you're repping I'm in the fan club. And
because
like,
I have this quote here. He said, "I had no idea what they looked like until I saw the video. I heard their music first and thought it was very great, very unique, very melodic, and a breath of fresh air for metal, and reminded me a bit of the 70s and kind of rock that I liked. So yeah, I love that band." And you're like, oh, that's so sweet. You obviously have that little cute moment where he goes, "I'm in their fan."
I think that was at like that same day. I found a clip of him, like he was like outside, and then like someone complimented his shirt, and he was wearing the Opus Eponymous shirt, and he's like, oh, really good shirt. He's like, oh, I really like that shirt. He's like, yeah, me too. I love that band. And he's like, oh, they just played at Ruxilda. They were so good. I was like,
didn't Tobias say something that he got the photo of James wearing that shirt whilst he was like waiting for his luggage or something at the airport, and that he like kind of burst into tears at the airport?
Yeah, I have that quote here too. I have that quote here. It says, many people probably discovered Ghost when Metallica played at Ylva. The whole gig was broadcast live by Swedish TV. We played with Ghost at Roskilde, so I missed that concert. I couldn't attend it, and I wouldn't even manage to watch it on TV. Metallica are long-time idols for me, and a gigantic band that I, of course, want to see when they're in town. Having landed in this Skavsta airport, I don't know if I probably butchered that, and I'm very sorry. Waiting by the baggage carousel, we were all switching on our phones, and we all got flooded by calls and messages because James Hetfield had been on live TV wearing a Ghost shirt. That really felt like, because Sebastian had a lot of female idols, but if he had one male idol, that was James Hetfield. So that was like a very strange nod, and all he did was wearing that shirt and saying he liked the band, but it was huge.
Oh.
Yeah. Like that was such like a huge moment for him, because it's like, you know, I think it's like one thing to like hear like all these like you know, to get positive perception and everything when you release something new, but to not only get positive reception, but also like basically get shout outs from someone that you've like idolized, like I wouldn't know how to like handle myself. Like, and there's so many pictures that of like Ghost interacting with Metallica, and it's just you kind of like think about how like Tobias is just like this huge Metallica fanboy, and he's literally out here like being supported by like one of his favorite bands ever, and like they love him. And I don't have video of this, and it pains me, but I saw Metallica at Rockville like a couple years ago. It was like a November show. I think it was like November 2021 or something. And Metallica played 2 days because they have like 5 million songs. So they had two super long sets. And on the last day, because they played, I think it was on Thursday, and they played on Sunday. So on the Sunday set, when they closed out, everything was done, and everyone was kind of packing up and leaving. They played Ghost's cover of Enter Sandman as they were like packing up and leaving. So it's just so amazing how like they've just supported Ghost like the entire time. And I like to think I wonder what goes through like Tobias's mind like on a daily basis. Like I know how he reacted when he first saw that, but the fact that like they still continue to support them and like be fans of them. Like James Hetfield now has he posted a picture of his battle jacket not long ago, and he has an Opus patch on there. Like on his battle jacket, he is repping this band.
Yep. And then there's also those pictures as well, like whenever they were on tour with Metallica, like he'd go out into the audience wearing a mask just to stand and listen to them play. Where he could he could stand at the side of the stage quite easily, but he's like, no, I need to go stand out front and see them because I want to see them from the front, because that's obviously the way the show's meant to be viewed. You know, and then he introduced them at a festival, I think, once as well. He introduced them on stage. Mm-hmm. You know, and there's that picture of Primo standing with James Hetfield, and I can't you can only just see Tobias's eyes, and it's just the look of the eyes of that man, kind of tip, you know, like with his little hands, his little like tinted hands, you know, standing beside James Hetfield, like, oh my god, you know, and then you have that. But what I love as well is like he's a fan, but he's also critical as well. Like when I asked him about, he played, Cerise, and he was like, yeah, we played it wrong.
Yeah, and he talks about his disdain for like load and reload and stuff, and magnificent anger, which valid.
But yeah, like having a band like Metallica, and especially a guy like James Hetfield, who everybody agrees is the coolest man in metal, on your side, especially that early on, must have been like such a validation for him that this was the right thing to, this was the right band to put all his effort in, because we didn't really talk about it, but he was like 29 when the album came out.
Yeah, and you kind of think you're done by then. I know, like, you're not, but at that age, you think you are.
Yeah, if you look at his life, because like at that time, like obviously his wife had just had, like it was, well, not like his wife at the time. Well, she wasn't they weren't married at the time, but his wife had just had their twins. He was in this job that he didn't like, and this kind of like the idea of supporting a new family on a band that might not do well is a very big risk for somebody, in their late 20s to kind of, to think of. And again, we always bring her up, and I will say that this woman is just as responsible for Ghost as anything else. But Bull, being like a year into having these twins, looked at that man and went, yes, you can do this. You know what I mean? Like, go for it. Like she was clearly fully supporting it.
Queen behavior.
Yeah, and like that woman is just as responsible for, the success of Ghost, because again, she's the one that helped find the Primo mask and stopped him from burning his house down. Like she she had to, like, she fully supported him. She there's all those cool videos you see of like her like sitting at the side of Steve's kids, listening to them play and stuff like that there, and like it must have been so scary for him at that time, like because he felt like he'd failed so much, and like even like again because like obviously it came out in October, this was July, it wasn't a year, like obviously still kind of in that early bubbly period of like will it do well, and then like James Hetfield of Metallica comes out and like I like this band, I would have been like, I don't know how he managed to kind of continue with the day, to be honest. I'd have been just sitting until the next day crying. Like having that kind of backing. It's kind of like when you see in movies and stuff where, like, somebody like Guillermo del Toro will like produce a movie. It's basically him putting his stamp of approval on it. So like if you see, like, so having that in the kind of Metallica, must have been, I can't imagine, and he deserves it because he's a talented person, like
talented little bugger.
He does deserve all of this, because he has put the work in. He has, but he's worked on this. Like he's had this vision in his head of being a famous rock star since he was a kid, and you can see all of that love and dedication and dream that he had to get to this, and all of the stuff Ghost does growing up. Like, is that picture? I don't really like Paul Encino. I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't know how stuff if his last name. I mean, I'm not a huge fan. But you have that picture of him like kneeling in front of Secondo. Like getting getting a blessing almost. Like, it's a cool picture.
Yeah.
And just like that makes me laugh when people are like, Ghosts aren't metal. Like, well, all your favorite metal people say they are. So
like, I don't know what the fuck to tell you, man.
Yeah.
I think what should be said, like, if you want to like have like some sort of argument like that, is like not necessarily like, oh, I miss when Ghost was heavier. It's like, because like sometimes I feel that sometimes, like, not like, oh, I wish Ghost was heavier, more like I wish like they like I miss when they were like extra spooky. Because like I felt like at least with the first two albums, like Opus and Infest, they were like they were heavy like on the spookier side of things, and like they were a little bit more obvious like with the Satanism and everything. And I always thought that was kind of cool. Like I liked those parts of it. I mean, I love the direction that they're going in now, and I'm eager for what comes next. But I do look at like how Opus and Infest sounded, because I find Opus and Infest to be like pretty similar in sounds, even though out of the two, I think I prefer Opus. But yeah, like I did like when they were extra spooky.
But one of the other funny things about the Opus era was, it was kind of like sort of like an open secret sort of who he was, because the very first interview they ever did with Rocks, they kind of kidnapped, in air quotes, an interviewer and like brought him to this place and played some music for him, and then they were kind of like, it was like Primo, Papa Emeritus was the one he was interviewing, and the interviewer kind of said, I've heard that there's members of Repugnant in this band, and they're like, no. But he knew this, you know what I mean? Like, Tobias was actually friends with this interviewer. Like, but he's sitting there going, I can just imagine him sitting on the seat like squinting going, Tobias? No, shut up. Just go with it. All right.
Speaking of Repugnant and Ghosts, I want to give a shout out to Tobias working the fucking double shift with Repugnant and Ghost.
That's so good. He must have been so tired at the end of that as well.
I don't know how motherfucker did that. Like, I can like one show looks exhausting enough, and like he did a 2-for-1, and I'm like, how?
All right then. So the next one we'll cover is Infestisment. Obviously, we're going to go in running order. Cammy, where can we find you?
I'm in pretty much all the major like social media sites at your fave guesty.
And Katie?
At C2May on Twitter.
And Alana?
I am HXC Fairy everywhere that has a social media presence.
I'm Alva. I'm also everywhere at Shameless Ghoul. Shameless_Ghoul and so on. You know where I am, unfortunately. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.